As we're coming back together, or if you're joining us for the first time, I just want to welcome you. I am Tiffany Morgan. I am the moderator for this session, so looking forward to learning alongside you. I will be putting in a link to our conference survey. So I would encourage you to fill it out for any sessions that you may attend while you're with us. Your feedback really helps us give you more of the sessions that you enjoy and want to see from the organization. Also, as you have any questions, please add those to the chat and we'll collect those for the end and have our presenter address those once she's finished. If you have any technical issues, you can also add those to the chat or message me privately, and I'm happy to help you with any technical issues. So with that, we get the recording going there. And it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter for the afternoon, Gloria Gomez. And Gloria, just want to make sure that at the bottom of the screen, you can see that green arrow so that you can share your presentation. And with that, if you do, I can hand it off to you.
Hello, Tiffany. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my presentation now. Yeah, let me know if you can see it.
Sure do. You're off and running.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to have to stop for a minute because I have the presentation mode. Okay. Now I need to remove this. Mm. Now I can see my slides. So, kia ora. Hello, I am Dr. Gloria Gomez. I'm co-founder of at OceanBrowser Limited, an adjunct senior lecturer at the University of Sydney School of Medicine. Today, I am joining the conference from Otepoti, Dunedin, Aotearoa, New Zealand. My session is titled Bringing Design Prototypes and Sustainable Microinnovations in Flexible Learning. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you this very early morning for me here. This session will guide participants. In this session, I will guide participants through the 6 BDP principles with some questions sparking reflection. What I am presenting today kind of show that how BDPs can mitigate adoption barriers of resources or technologies, afford experimentations in real learning settings, perhaps also promote bottom-up problem-solving activities and in that process, get sustainable micro-innovations. For example, enable teachers and students to become designers. And the center is internal designer participation to give way to community designs. In the broader conversation of what I'm presenting today, I feel like BDPs may help bridge the gap between the promise of research in technology-enhanced learning and practice in educational institutions, maybe help also to disseminate a participatory culture of learning design among educators and decision makers at institutional level. So that's like the broader picture of what I'm presenting today. But before I start, I would like to ask you just a few questions and perhaps just a few words in the chat share a little bit about your background. Are you undertaking a prototyping process at present? What do you hope to take away with you today from this presentation? It's like if someone would like to share a little bit. Yeah. I don't see any notes on the chat. So the idea of this presentation is also is like to see if this approach could be useful to you when you are prototyping something. And by prototyping is like when you are putting together some resources to teach, some resources to advise people in online education or in face-to-face education. See if these principles can accompany you on that process. So that's like the goal. So Tiffany is sharing that she's an engineering PhD student in human-computer interaction and interested in learning how this might relate to my research. Wonderful, Tiffany. Well, I am hoping that you can take some points with you today. And Jess, she's working. Jess is working on a template course for my anatomy and physiology team at a community college. Fantastic. I think I'm going to present two experiences of mine that probably can relate to what Tiffany and Jess are doing. Thank you for sharing. So now let's get cracking with the definition of this approach. Human-centered design, or HCD, is a creative approach to problem solving that can facilitate the construction of culturally sensitive, accessible, and flexible learning, and has been recommended to support digital access and equity. The bridging design prototype approach is a human-centered design method that enables design researchers and practitioners to actively engage educators in the development of novel inclusive resources. A bridging design prototype is a fully functional rapid prototype built with features familiar to a user community and novel features a designer incorporates after careful analysis of relevant data. It capitalizes on a user community's prior knowledge, that is, the knowledge a user already has about a situation or an activity, and recognizes their context realities. Educators accept to incorporate them into activities, while designers use them for learning about the context. These images belong to my doctoral research in which I developed a bridging design prototype to investigate preschool concept mapping from an interaction design perspective. I have implemented BDPs to advance concept mapping in preschool. Beyond my own research, a couple of early childhood experts have used it to inform their own concept mapping research on science education and interactive language learning with children with speech difficulties. BDPs have also been implemented to research and develop technology to enhance engagement in asynchronous distance education and enhance the first year experience of on-campus and off-campus university students. Some of my students have also used it in product development and innovation in other areas, but I decided to limit the examples to education in this presentation today. So what kind of rapid functional prototypes are BDPs? Well, BDPs are experience prototypes and prototypes. Experience prototypes emphasize experiential aspects. Prototypes are used to provoke a reaction and insights. The main difference is that BDPs must be fully functional rapid prototypes, and experimentation should not require the presence of designers. The diagram shows how the six BDP principles are organized and interact with each other during the human-centered design process of an educational resource or technology. During the design process, a designer gains understanding, develop interpretations of a practice in connection to a community's culture of teaching and learning. A BDP iterative development is informed by these six principles, which are seminal concepts drawn from human-centered product development, user-centered, inclusive, and participatory design, and a theory of meaningful learning. These emerged through struggling with ways to apply human-centered design as an individual designer, an organization of one in real settings. The first set of principles help to understand who we are designing for. Approximate research methods are used to gather relevant data and learn about the user community. Secondary data sources are heavily relied upon when rapid ethnography is not possible early in the project. The second set of principles help to implement resource features. These principles guide designers in the process of learning meaningfully about each member of the community and from diverse and multiple perspectives. Every person who uses the approach and applies each principle could gain early entry to a real setting, gain understanding about the context and practices of an educational learning community. You become kind of an ambassador, an advocate for the community that you are working with. Slowly, they learn that you are working to develop something that builds on what they already know, respects their practices, and that you are supporting them with your expertise. So now I am going to go into each principle and present one case, a little bit of one or two cases, and then some questions that might spark some critical reflection in you. We start the BDP process with the development of a human-centered design study that brings a multidisciplinary thinking team approach to research the learning community and their context. You will need to use approximate research methods for rapid review of primary sources or secondary sources, and as well as rapid prototyping techniques. If you are not invited early into a learning community for doing observations, you might have to heavily rely on key expert informants or secondary sources. You might need to start learning about a particular community via videos, podcasts, read about the topic in journal, conference, or magazine articles, interacting with related resources or technologies, any kind of source that lets you enter the world of every member of the community you are designing for or with. In the Human-Centered Design Study of OB3, an app for enhancing online study in distance education, we needed to understand what kind of features and resources could bring about meaningful learning and foster connection with the student doctors who are time-starved, reside outside of main centers, studying while working, and/or caretaking. The Human-Centered Design Study focused on understanding tasks that lecturers and students undertake around study content, data collection on learning and teaching interactions occurred via informal conversations and documentation review, such as e-learning in medical education, support of study skills for academic success, network learning, as well as metacognition and good visual design. The Human-Centered Design Study of my Otago first year aimed to develop self-guided resources that help students with getting started at university. The study identified topics and resources taking the form of articles, video interviews, tutorials, and links to external sites. I needed to understand what might help students' introduction to the environment of academia. We collected data via student interviews, conversation with academic staff who teach first-year students, Secondary sources were reviewed for increasing understanding, including the PhD thesis on the topic by the academic staff leading the project. So at this point, I stop for a minute just to see whether if you can assimilate a little bit what I just shared. Perhaps answer one of these questions. Are you learning about the situation of your learning community from a multidisciplinary thinking perspective? Are you putting multiple thinking hats to understand what's going on? Are sources bringing rich and diverse perspectives into your understanding of the community, their activities, their content, their context, and their practice? If you cannot do rapid observations, are you connecting with everyone who you are designing for or with every person in the community who your design is going to impact? This is an important reflection because sometimes, most times when you cannot access or gain entry to your community early, there are lots of different ways that we can get close to that community through different approaches. So I will just give you like a minute to see if someone would like to share something in the chat. I'm going to check it again. Corey, is great that you are constantly trying new things. I would be curious to hear about what you think about this approach. So anyone, when you are designing for your community, do you do any of the things that I have put in my questions? Well, I will continue to the next one. The next principle is deep understanding of the prior knowledge and familiar technological, behavioral, and social interactions of the community. You achieve this principle through relevant data gathered as part of the human-centered design study and later during the careful analysis of data fragments. This principle is inspired by a learning theory that says that for people to learn meaningfully, three conditions should exist. The learner must have prior knowledge on the topic, the learning must happen with familiar languages, and that the learner must want to learn. If we want members of a community to adopt our novel design tools or resources, the first two conditions, familiar languages and prior knowledge, can help you achieve a deep understanding of their needs, guide feature development so we can identify the languages, features that will enhance adoption, that will make them want to engage with our designs. In the preschool concept mapping project, I couldn't gain early entry into preschool settings for doing observations. Instead, I carried out a literature review on relevant concepts, which guided conversations with key experts. To gain understanding of the prior knowledge and familiar interactions of the preschool communities I was interacting with. All this information informed the prototyping cycles. Design guidelines and requirements emerged from the human-centered design study as it evolved. A multidisciplinary literature review on theories and approaches on how children learn, as well as the techniques and tools teachers use for knowledge mapping with preschoolers. The 4 guidelines and 13 requirements guided feature design as they help to have better understanding of preferences, needs, physical, cognitive, physical, and social factors, environment, values, ideas, context of use, familiar languages, and interactions. So the proposed design, when it made it to the first preschool communities, was completely transformed and reinterpreted by the teachers and the children. So that's what you want to achieve when you are developing a BDP, is that from the moment that you give it to the community, this BDP continue being developed and the users becomes the designers of the resource as well. So some questions for you. Do you know enough about every member of your community to start proposing recommendations for something they could quickly adopt? Do you know enough about the prior knowledge of every member in connection to the activity or practice you are designing for? Are your reviews of documentation helping you to inform the development of guidelines for feature design? Just as I give you just 1 minute and let's see what I can see in the chat. So Melissa is saying that interesting approach as an instructional designer, it helps also being an instructor. And Vern says, yes, it does. It does. And instructional design is shifting right before our eyes. You can create an agent that creates the entire code for the LMS. I wonder if this is related to my presentation. And Tiffany is saying, I feel like I know the community I'm building for, but I want to validate those assumptions. So I'm working through that. Oh, that's very important. So, Tiffany, what about, yeah, it's been, when you ask people to validate, uh, how you invite them to validate, how do you invite them to engage with your designs is very important. That is not only something like intellectual, that you find ways for them to actually experience what you are working on or developing in progress, even if it's not the final prototype, even if they are low fidelity prototypes, even if they are just drawings. But that's very important in order to develop a relationship with the community. So the last of the first set of principles is becoming more empathic by the designer and the classroom community, achieving similar mental models. Engaging with the learning community meaningfully through different activities increases your empathy. Increasing empathy helps closing the gap or distance between a designer's conceptual model, a user's mental model, and a resource and of a resource or technology. A user develops a mental model through interactions with the system image of the resource. Successful communication through a resource depends on what users can derive from its physical or digital structure, the way it looks, the way it feels, and the way it's operated. In the preschool concept mapping project, low fidelity prototypes and high fidelity prototypes were built. Empathy and solidarity emerged and increased because of socializing these prototypes during conversations with key expert informants and critically analyzed them using the literature review. This is how I slowly closed the communication gap between my conceptual models and what the resource should be, and children's and educators' mental models, and what the resource, yeah, and how it should be operated. Concept mapping was not part of the preschool curriculum. So no matter what I said, no matter what I drew, the teachers didn't really like it, like this approach. With my understanding evolving at each iteration, I was able to build a tangible BDP that some teachers finally accepted to incorporate in real activities with their children, and then the real experimentation and explorations started. So with this principle, some questions for you. Are you using your findings, your learnings from multiple perspectives in the development of low and high fidelity prototypes that meet the needs of every member of your community? Are you using these rapid prototypes for communicating, dialoguing with every member? Are educators, students, support staff, and or administrators helping you to lessen gaps in understanding mindsets, mental or conceptual models? Because the more in people is involved in the process of designing, the more in tune in terms of models for what the resource should be, you will be. So perhaps just 1 minute if someone would like to share something. It would be also interesting to know if the folks who are attending here today use rapid prototyping for developing projects, or do a sketching, or use things that are not developed like perfectly to engage the people they are designing for quickly earlier. It would be interesting to know that. Okay, so I will continue. The last of the sets, I think I went back. Yeah. So the second set starts with the principle features development for making activities simpler. This principle is inspired on the 7 principles for transforming complex tasks difficult tasks into simple ones from a user-centered design methodology. The 7 principles help understanding and reducing complexity during the feature implementation. Informed by guidelines and requirements resulting from the empathic analysis, they help decide how to structure actions and operations to meet design expectations. They invite to exploit, capitalize on natural properties and constraints, use mental aids, provide timely feedback, design explorable systems, or standardize elements if needed. In the OB3 case, the human-centered design study looked for ways to enhance student engagement in asynchronous distance education. We were designing for a community comprised by busy doctors who are lecturers and tutors, administrative staff doing educational design activities, and busy students, doctors doing postgraduate studies while working. 2 changes in interaction design were made to make activities simpler. Change 1, students and academic staff can author media-rich content with familiar skills in the same interface. We exploited cultural constraints and made the outcome of actions obvious for minimal technical training. Some features capitalized on familiar skills with Microsoft Office, internet browsing, or email applications. Other features were automated to serve as mental aids and speed up the workflow. The change 2, discussions embedded in line with content. One interface for students and educators aimed to increase participation. We automated irrelevant tasks such as automatic inclusion of hyperlinks, embedding of resources, and scaffolded relevant interactions for co-creating lectures or lecturing or assignment content. We changed the nature of tasks and standardized actions informed by good visual design principles to enhance metacognition. These are reflected in the style palette, the interaction commands, and modes. Within the Masters in Ophthalmic Science, run collaboratively by the University of Sydney and the University of Otago, students have used OB3 to share and develop content with colleagues in a variety of formats. The design and implementation of lecturing and assignment materials produced a collaborative development model, enabling educators to co-design learning with students. The figure illustrates the main components of the model and how these iterate. Student-led assignments such as online journal clubs, group projects on reference documents, and the Optiki project. The last project mentioned, in this one, students with academic guidance have developed more than 141 entries on optics, which are shared with future cohorts and alumni. The QR code takes you to a video in which educators and students talk about these activities. So I will give you a minute to capture the QR code. just a few seconds. So now I will ask a few questions for reflection. Are you using your new understandings of your community to simplify activities, tasks? Are you taking advantage of what every person in your community know and already use? Could you perhaps design something novel with familiar and novel components? Could people understand how to read or use what you have developed? Are you standardizing when activities appear complicated? That I would just give you a minute to think a little bit about these questions. So I will continue with the next principle. The next principle is features development for broadening participation and is inspired on the inclusive design approach. Inclusive design is an approach for designing products that can be used for used or appeal the wider possible range of uses. It is aimed at users with different functional capabilities, including frequent users of the product, of the resource, of the technology, or anyone who needs to interact with it for its successful operation. For example, installers, support staff, maintenance, among other people like that. By asking why and how, we can prototype design features or ways of interacting with a resource that lower adoption barrier and broaden participation to everyone who is meant to interact with the potential product or a resource. The first set of BDP principles that I presented help prevent design exclusion of community members. The second set of BDP principles inform good feature design. They help us identify the common motor, cognitive, and social capabilities that our resource should be designed with, so no one who needs to use the BDP is excluded. Informal conversations during the human-centered design study of my Otago first year helped identify students, academics, and support staff who had experience and expertise in this area. From that data, I extracted information on common capabilities and identified familiar technologies and instructional approaches that could broaden participation. A decision was made to implement website and online resources with technologies that student advisors and support staff were proficient in using, so they could carry out website and resource updates without external expert support. Some resources were co-created. Academic and support staff produced how-to videos, like doing oral presentations or writing skills. Second and third year students participated in short videos explaining how to take lecture notes or sharing first year experiences. In this case, the BDP approach has provided a framework for engaging educators, students, and support staff to co-create resources using an online guided discovery instruction approach. So in this set, the questions could be for inspiration or reflection. Are you building a product on cognitive, motor, and social capabilities common to all people in your learning community? Are you identifying why and how people in this community cannot use a resource or technology to encounter design exclusion? Are you making sure that the features of your potential resource or technology are inclusive of everyone who needs to be included in this community? What do you think about these questions that I am asking as I am presenting? Have you come across these concepts before? are you thinking that perhaps they are hard to implement? How to go about it? Or do you feel like they are not really related to what you do? It would be interesting to hear from you in the chat. So, Tiffany, you're sharing that new approaches to practices and models I'm used to, interested in diving more into the research. You mean into the research of designing some models or using the approaches and models to do your research? That would be nice too, if you could explain a little bit more. Ah, cool. That's nice to know. Yeah, cool. Yes, that would be awesome. Melissa says the concept is not familiar, so responding to the question is not easy. I do love the challenge that this principle presents. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it is a challenging principle. I really wrestled with it a lot when at the start of the first time that I came across it, when I was trying to design for all the members of my user community of my group. So I was trying to design for the teachers, the children, the administrative staff in the preschool classroom, and later in distance education. So it's like to think about how do we work with everyone in the community to make sure that what we develop is for them to minimize adoption barriers and to enhance participation in the process. Oh, thank you, Tiffany and Melissa, for sharing. So I will continue. So the next principle is the last principle is implementation of a prototype for early adoption, enabling the user community to participate, contribute, improve features in the design process. This principle is informed by the participatory design method. Participatory design advocates for early involvement in the design process. The ability of the user community to modify prototypes allows for a rich and diverse set of perspectives and experiences that share a distinctive spirit and direction that brings a more humane, creative, and effective relationship between the people involved in the design of a resource or technology and its use. In this case, the educators at a primary school in the Netherlands reoriented my BDP for preschool concept mapping to explore its suitability as a didactic tool to enhance interactive language learning in the education of children with language difficulties. After 3 pilots with escalating numbers in participation and duration, the school management decided to incorporate concept mapping at every level. Explorations with BDP adaptations, redesigns, and a new design, an app for the interactive whiteboard developed by a teacher with no involvement from me, transformed speech therapists and teachers into designers. They had the opportunity to influence the BDP design, which is a compelling participatory design idea. The teachers reported the representation of meanings with verbal and visual symbols had a great impact on children's language development, vocabulary, and spontaneous speech. They also said that minimal impact on their daily teaching activities. The quality of this educational resource has improved due to the teachers' explorations. The BDP enabled this school community to sustainably adopt a new tool and construct a new teaching reality to replace an existing method. They were replacing topic webs, and they used it to complement others. For example, conversation exchange method. The teachers co-designing achieved a change in didactic tools from a bottom-up approach. One by one, teachers were convinced through personal experience because they saw the children behaving differently. So this is the powerful outcome of the kit in the hands of people that I was not designing with, people who came across my work in the literature and they just started designing their own BDPs for their own projects. And they later contacted me to provide a little bit of expert advice, but I was always a person on the outside while they were in the center designing. And this is the example that explains why I feel that BDPs can transform educators and students into co-designers of learning, and decenter the participation of designers. Because ultimately what we want is people adopting our designs and doing better in education settings. And that the adoption of a resource is broad, right? So the questions for you are: the members of your learning community asking to give your design a go? Are they offering to incorporate it into their real activities? Or do you think that you need to tweak your rapid prototype a bit more for this to happen? So I will just give you a minute to see if you would like to contribute to this. In the meantime, I'm going to read the chat. Vern, they were both. Some educators, they work with mind maps, and in schools they call them topic webs, right? And other educators use concept maps. Yeah, there is that debate. It depends of how they teach the technique. With little ones, they usually use mind maps because it's easier. And some teachers use cluster maps. I think clustering maps, they call them, to create clusters. But my colleague, Amy Casata Widera, who applied it to a science project, she actually taught these children to make concept maps as the definition. And the voice recorders in the middle that were used for recording the linking phrases. And that's how she managed to get the children to make concept maps in line with Joseph Novak's framework. So what is showing is that the resource that was developed through this process allowed educators to introduce different types of mapping activities, which was part of the requirements developed, one of the 13 requirements of the project. Well, I will just continue just to wrap up. Yep. The BDP approach is a human-centered method that can help to develop a novel educational resources to gain entry to learn about the people, the context, and the practice. Designers using this approach can actively engage community members in co-creation and co-designing activities. BDPs could be useful in projects seeking community design, promoting bottom-up adoption, decentering external designer participation, and enabling users, for example, teachers, to become designers. But in some cases, also the students have become co-designers as well, as the project, the Optiki project I told you about earlier on. Well, my future work in this area is like I'm expanding my work now into pro-reversal and decolonization design as it relates to educational practice. I wrote a paper called Bridging Design Prototypes and Autonomous Design that could be of interest in which I am reflecting on the project of the colleagues of the Netherlands, because even though these colleagues were in the global north, designing in the global north, the way that they did the bottom-up adoption of concept mapping has characteristics of autonomous design as is understood in the global south. It's a very interesting process that I am going through at the moment. I'm working on an edited publication. I haven't managed to finish it yet. And I am available for workshops, introductions, or of this topic or longer engagement if someone will be interested, online or on site. I'm interested in applied research collaborations around this topic. And if you'd like to get updates about it, please, and workshop schedules, please connect via LinkedIn or contact me at gloria@oceanbrowser.com. It's just been a real pleasure presenting today. And I'm just wondering, Tiffany, if there is enough time for questions or something. I think I used it all. Uh,
That's all
but
right.
let's see.
If anyone, no, you're fine. If anyone wants to add any questions that they might have to the chat, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for your presentation. I know that I took some screenshots, so I can go back and look at your references. I'm going to add the day one survey feedback to the chat. So if you want to offer any feedback for any of the sessions that you've attended today, we'd appreciate that, so we can continue to give you the type of content that you're looking for. But with that, I will open it if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, if you are departing for the day, thank you so much, and we're looking forward to having you back again tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Harriet.
You're
Thank
welcome. You did a
you.
great job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I would have loved to be part of the earlier sessions, but it's just like so early here.
I know it
I'm gonna see
is.
if I can do tomorrow morning at least the